Welcome back to Culture Matters. Join us in this segment. Besides John and Jane, we have a new guest here. His name is Anthony. Anthony Oren. Anthony Oren is from Chicago. He's the visiting professor at Fudan University, and he's specialized in sociology. Yes. Welcome, Anthony.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, how do you view the action that Jane trying to adapt the kids from disastrous areas?
Well, I mean, if my wife and I could do it, we'd do it as well. Because I think, we all feel a sense that we want to help out and provide, homes and refuge for these kids. And I think this is really a disaster of extraordinary proportions. And these aren't everyday orphans.
Yeah.
These are kids who have suffered a major kind of trauma in their lives. My, basic feeling, given the magnitude of this, is if I were to think about, okay, kids have been orphaned, what should we do? You should first look for extended family in the area. You want to keep the situation as familiar as possible. Kids, everyone needs a connection to a community, to a place. And I think, that clearly would be first preference, to try to keep the surroundings as familiar as possible. In these kinds of disasters in the past, people often return to the place because this was home and so on. So you want to give the kids a sense of, this is where they're connected. And if you can't do that, then obviously adoption is a very important thing. But I think those normality and those connections are very important.
Yeah, see, we have a very good example sitting next to you, actually, John O'Shea. He adopted a daughter in Thailand.
Right.
While he was there.
Right.
And then, after the adoption, he moved to Japan.
Right.
And then he adopted another son in Japan.
Right.
So, and now, he's placing these two kids here in China with him.
Right.
So, these two kids are from two different cultural backgrounds, two different countries, and so forth.
Right.
So, maybe John, do you really agree with the professor here, with Anthony?
I agree with Anthony that, if there is extended family in familiar surroundings, for instance, if there's an uncle or an auntie, that is able to provide for the child, it's probably best they keep in their normal family environment. They've lost their mother and their father, but probably what's worse is to lose their community if they had left. In our situation, it was kind of slightly different, but there's some important points as well. For instance, we adopted two children that were up for adoption. They didn't have any extended family to look after them. However, as Sam pointed out, my daughter is from Thailand, my son is from Japan. I think from a cultural point of view, it's still very, very important, even though we got them from a very, very early age, is to keep them connected to their culture. My daughter has a Thai passport and an Australian passport, and when she's 18, she can decide which one she wants to keep. And I think to keep the two children connected to their original culture is a very, very important part. In our kids, there's going to be a double connection: a connection to Australia through my family, and a connection to their own country. And and I think keeping this as long as possible until they can decide for themselves where do we want to be in this world is kind of very important.
Yeah.
So Jane, have you ever thought about these questions, actually?
Definitely, I strongly agree with what Anthony says. That's one of the reasons I said I want a Chinese baby. I want them to finish their education in here. And also, if it's possible, they're still able to make a connection or keep these connections with all old classmates, all old relatives. So that them knowing that was their relatives and also classmates, and they still has that network in there. When they grow up, they just knowing that at the same time they had their relative and they has another mom and family give them a love and support her or him. So I think that was very good for the orphan.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So adopt a orphan after the disaster. Is this the best way to do it?
Obviously, if there is no extended family, it's very important to have people available to adopt the kids. But this is a tragedy of epic proportions in a way. If you're going to be an adoptive family, you're going to have to be prepared to take in kids who have suffered through this, and these are kids who are going to relive these experiences. I mean,